Thank you. Thank you for this panel around transportation. So yeah, I know Darag, but I think you're here for the diversity matters. So, so I'm kidding, of course. So I'm very proud to have this panel because you are very senior on only US based companies. So just for a matter of humility, I'd like you to say how many applications you have in 1 month, if you have these numbers in mind, and how many people you really hire after the whole funnel. So, I mean, if you have 100 people that apply to your job desk, to your job offers, how many people do you really hire after? So, Luc, you want to begin?
I have no idea, actually. I should know that, but I don't. So,
so you don't know how you transform with your funnel?
Yeah, I know the funnel. I mean, we have sourcers, recruiters. I just don't know the stats and how much we lose at each step. So sadly, maybe you can say something intelligent.
So been at Yelp before Uber and Uber now for about over a year. I can't give exact numbers because that wouldn't be the right thing to do, but I can tell you ratios. So if we say, for instance, have 100 people going through the funnel at the top of the funnel, by the time we get to the end of the funnel, roughly you can expect about 20% people getting and potentially an offer. And usually after that, it's anywhere between 50 to 75%, depending on who we are hiring and stuff like that. So the ratio slimmed down quite heavily after the first stage in the funnel, which is the phone screen. And then on-site, we drop roughly another 50% before we get to the end of the funnel. So yeah, you could expect if you're pushing 100 people through, you might get maybe 1 or 2 if you're lucky at the end of it.
And I should say that's consistent with Google's. I think it's roughly 100 to 1.
Yeah. Pretty similar here. Like the numbers I am familiar with are for engineering manager hiring recently, and it's really hard. It's like 1 in 100 through the top of the funnel, which is, it's hard. Takes a lot of time.
Okay, so Darag, I think, so you've been since the beginning of the company at Intercom? Almost?
Almost, yeah.
Yes. So how do you hire? As you are a small company, you're not famous. What do you put on the table when you want to hire and you're still not known?
Like in the early days, we leaned a lot on our network, our referrals. So we were able to hire people who'd worked with us before, and it was easy for them to know what they were signing up for, and an easy opportunity to tell them exactly what we are. It wasn't like this high pressure one-shot thing. So that got us quite far, actually. And then the next wave of hiring, I think, came from having established like some sort of presence online and like people knowing who Intercom is and kind of starting to come inbound. And that works pretty well until you want to actually be very deliberate about the types of people you want to hire, and then you have to start working hard at going and finding them. So, yeah.
Okay. And you, so I think you're pretty famous, both of you now. So, what kind of people does apply to your job offers, and how do you filter them? What the best tip, Tasmin, you can give? So. You have a lot of people that apply, so how do you filter them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we source and recruit for the whole company. So engineering at Uber, we have a centralized recruiting funnel now. It didn't used to be the case a few months ago, but now we're fairly centralized across every part of engineering. And so essentially, you can always imagine that depending on the candidate's skill set, we always have some position that we can fill within the company. So there isn't necessarily a skill mismatch usually that we have to worry about. So what we're really looking for, and at Uber in the last year, we've over-indexed on hiring senior talent. So we're really looking for people with that 5, 10 plus years of experience. And so that would be one parameter, if you will, for us to screen on. If someone has limited amount of experience, we're going to have limited amount of positions that we can offer to them. But if they have 5, 10, 15 plus years of experience, we're going to be able to offer them many options. And also the way we bring them on, the process we use, the way we sell the candidate, all of it will be tweaked based on the profile of the candidate, the number of years they've been in the industry, the expertise they bring in, and so on. So the process gets fairly tailored based on, you know, the candidate itself. And then finally, we actually end up spending a lot of time in ensuring that a process is fine-tuned. And honestly, like, we've done a lot more work in the last 6 to 9 months to fine-tune the process, to kind of ensure that we figure out what we look for during the phone screen process, what do we look for in the interview process, how do we evaluate whether the candidate is a good fit for Uber, and whether Uber is a good fit for the candidate. So that's a very important parameter as well. Not everyone is a good fit to Uber, and not everyone should come to Uber. And so kind of making sure that it's a good fit on both sides, where it's not just whether the candidate is a good fit for us, but whether we are a good fit for them. And so that's sort of part of the process of interview.
Okay, and Luc, on your side, how do you balance between soft skills and hard skills during the hiring process to make sure that this is the good people to hire?
Can I comment on the last topic first? So what I wanted to add is that once you have enough scale, it makes complete sense to, you know, have a centralized process and do what you suggest. It's great. But when you start, you know, hiring for like a new set of skills, for example, like we're starting to hire mechanical engineers, we didn't have a single one before, so you can't do that. And then you have to rely more on, you know, your network, the people you really know, so they can start bootstrapping this new team and go from there. On your question, so how do you balance between sort of soft skill and hard skill? I think what we do typically is have a sort of interviewing panel that has different tasks. So you've got, you know, somebody who's going to be doing the more of coding interview. Somebody's going to be doing
4 interviewers.
At Lyft, we're more, you know, open-minded about this. We have more than that typically.
More than that, okay.
Because we don't have as much data science yet behind the hiring, and you know, perhaps the hiring process is a bit less mature. So we have maybe more like 5 or 6, you know. Okay. And so we try to have, you know, somebody looking more at soft skills, somebody looking more at, you know, sort of, you know, design, somebody looking more at coding, so these kind of things.
And how do you balance the decisions given soft skills and hard skills?
So the process there is a hiring meeting where all the interviewers get together and pretty much discuss the candidate. After this, we get the feedback. So the feedback is already known to the recruiter. They sort of know what the consensus is. But then there's a discussion about the hard skill and soft skill, and then ultimately it's a judgment call. There's no, you know, formula or anything. You know, I think you want to, you know, mostly avoid making mistakes. At the same time, if you screen out too many candidates, then you can't grow. So it's always a judgment call. That's what it is.
So there was a question that had come up at some point earlier around like coding tests for screening candidates, and I'd say I just wanted to make a comment on that, and I'll tie it up with the question you asked. But the strategy and whether you use coding tests to screen candidates or not should depend on your funnel. And here's an example. So when I was hiring at Microsoft, we actually had a fairly rigorous coding test that took a candidate maybe anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours to do. And it worked really well for us in terms of screening out candidates, and a funnel got really streamlined after we passed a candidate through the phone screen. Essentially, the ratio from phone screen to hire was about 85-90%, which is super duper high. But that worked for us only because we were hiring very few candidates. We were hiring literally like I could count on my fingers candidates, right? So it was very easy for me to like lose at the top of the funnel because I could afford what came through the funnel. So it really depends on how fast you're growing and how you want to streamline your funnel, and you should think about that when you're actually hiring candidates. And I'd say between hard skills and soft skills, you can't compromise on either. Whether you're hiring, 100% scaling your team, or you're only hiring 1 or 2 people, you should never be compromising on one versus the other. And so one thing that we do at Uber is like we have every interviewer, and this is again, as Uber has grown it is the fastest growing company in the history of all companies in the last several years. So we have actually laxed on some of our interview best practices, and we are learning in the last, I would say, year. We've recognized some of our mistakes, and we are learning in terms of what to not optimize for. And I'd say one thing that you want to pay attention to, and you want to train every interviewer to pay attention to, is that signal on who you're hiring in terms of the attitude they bring in, the divas or the brilliant jerks. You want to make sure that your interviewers are trained to look for that signal, because you don't want to compromise for that in the interview process.
Thank you. Derek, do you want to add something on this?
The only thing I'd add is that part of our process that we've experimented a little bit with and are pretty happy with, but it does have some flaws, is that we have a session that combines both that technical and like soft attitude part, which orientates around like solving a relatively simple problem together with some other engineers, and like seeing how they interact, see how they take feedback, see how they ask questions, and generally see what it would be like to work with this person versus how smart they are in a kind of interview situation.
Okay. Maybe Luc, can you give us some insight on how do you pitch the culture during the hiring process? I will switch to another topic after. I think we will finish the hiring process. But I think it's important, so how it becomes very important to enter this discussion of culture during the hiring process, to be sure that the people you want to hire has a very good fit with the team when you will arrive.
Yeah, I mean, pitching the culture lately has been actually fairly easy, thanks to Uber. Thank you. So we've got some help. So, this being said,
we will talk about this just after.
That's okay. We're friends. No, seriously, I think the culture to me comes from the top. And I think what's important in pitching this is to sort of understand the founding team, where they come from, what their values are, and I think in our case, I think a large part of the value comes from John Zimmer, who's he's a kind of unusual background. He's one of the founders, and he went to the Cornell Hospitality School. So it's like a school that you go to if you want to do hotel administration and stuff like that. And so he has a very, very deep-rooted sense of service, and he brought that to Lyft, and he brought it to Lyft across the entire company, and that's something that we care deeply about. And so how do you know if that resonates with candidates? I think you talk about it, you see how they react, you sort of try to understand their own values and see if there's a match. It's again no magic formula, but that's what we try to do.
But it's quite common in the US to pitch a culture, I think, and
yes.
I think in France it's pretty new. How many of you are pitching culture during process interview? So how are you talking about culture during the interview process you have with candidates? Not so much, huh?
I mean, there's so many things that are defined as culture, right?
I think it's very important.
Working hours, so is it a company where it's like the dress code is culture, it's vacation policy is culture. All these things are culture. So I think you talk about all these things during the interview and see if the candidates, if it resonates with them. If they ask you questions that are sort of weird, that indicate that they have different expectations, that may be a signal that you use.
Interesting. So if we switch to the other topic I have in mind, which is retaining people, I think Tasnim, during the past months, I think Uber has been a bit controversial. And how do you retain people while there is some, I could say, adversity or things goes wrong, or how do you put some effort on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to the point I made earlier on, we as a company want to make sure that the candidate is a good fit for us. And what I mean by that is Uber's culture is very unique to Uber in many ways. And actually, it's a brilliant culture. I love working for Uber. And I am a loud-mouthed, kind of proponent of Uber as a company for what Uber has done so far. I don't think in my mind Uber's problem hasn't been the culture. Uber's problem has been the exponential growth. And I don't think that there's any company on this planet that has managed to grow the way Uber has and not have problems along the way. The brilliance that I find with Uber as a company and the leaders at Uber is that we recognize our problems and we're willing to say what our problems are and willing to say that we're willing to fix our problems, and we do everything to fix them, right? So that's Uber's culture, that's Uber's DNA, and that humility is what makes it easy for us to hire and retain talent, right? So I get probably half a dozen to a dozen requests I've gotten in the last 6 months for people to ask me to go join them, including Lyft. But having said that, the reason why I'm still with Uber is because I truly, truly believe in the company's mission, what we are here to do. We hire 3 million people worldwide, and we give them jobs. Like that, I don't think there's any other company apart from the Department of Defense in the United States that can say that, right? So that is huge to me, and that's what keeps me at Uber. And that's what we tap into when we're retaining people. It's the mission of the company. It's the purpose and why we are here. It's the purpose of what we do for our customers and the challenges that we have along the way. Not just product and business challenges, but also the technical challenges, which are, bar none, some of the hardest problems we're trying to solve, right? So I think that every person is motivated by different things. As managers, it's our job to kind of figure out what motivates individuals and what gets them excited. And then you sort of create, if you will, that structure for them to feel that excitement and that passion for the company. And to be honest, for people who don't, I want them to leave, right? So I encourage people to leave Uber if they don't feel that passion and energy for the company, because it just causes toxicity for the rest of the company. And so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Thank you. I think you mentioned something very interesting. I'll come to you, Derek, because I think you have something to say on this too. But we asked the question before with some other panelists that say, "Oh, I have no churn actually," and I'm not sure it's very good to have like zero churn. I think you have to manage that. Sometimes you have to just assume that people are leaving, and sometimes you have to let go people. So Derek, how do you manage that?
Specifically letting go people or churn?
I think. Is it your goal is to have zero churn, or your goal is to have the best guy for your team, and maybe sometimes you have to let go low performers or people that don't fit anymore in your team?
Yeah, like I think the only answer is the latter. Like you want the best team possible, and if something's not working out, you have to correct that. It's a hard one, like, because people on your team will often, particularly when you're relatively small and everyone knows everybody, it can react emotionally to it. But recently with a director departing, the story I told them, or like the way I explained what happened to them, is that we hire directors because we meet them, we believe they're brilliant people, we think they'll have a trajectory-altering impact on the business. They believe so too. We're excited. We want to make it work, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it's not like through like ill will anywhere. It's usually after a result of everyone trying really, really hard to make it work. But it's this like high reward but high risk thing, and it's absolutely the right thing for like the company and the person to call it quits if it's not working. It's hard and emotional and like a human thing, but trying to help everyone understand that there's fairness and kindness and all that kind of stuff, but that ultimately the right decision needs to happen, and people are grateful for that, in fact.
And I think we didn't touch this earlier in the different panels, but I think the hardest thing to do as an engineering manager is to let go people. I think it is one of the hardest things to do as an engineering manager. What do you think, Luc, about this?
I couldn't agree more. I think it's like, first of all, you have hired these people in the first place, so you brought them in, you gave them a chance, but then you sometimes realize that you made a mistake, right? And so I think your responsibility is to cut your losses, and also, as you said, the team will thank you, because when there's a low performer in the team, everybody picks up the slack, and you end up really having a team that's resentful of you as a manager because you have this problem that you're not dealing with. Often it takes time. So the problem with dealing with a low performer, that in the US at least, it will take you 3 to 6 months, maybe it's even longer in France, to let somebody go because you have to.
Even in the US, I thought
Well,
it was like
I
very
think it
short
depends
term.
on the company. You can do it faster, but companies like Google, you put them on a plan. You just like give them a chance to turn things around, right? And when you do this, you can't really openly talk about this, so nobody really knows what's going on. They still resent you as a manager because they perceive you're not dealing with a problem, but the problem is actually being dealt with. So it's challenging, it's a pain. Ultimately, I think the right thing to do in this case is to let them go. It's gut-wrenching, but it happens, and it's the right thing to do.
Okay, I think I didn't know about it. I didn't know that was the way. We have a kind of caricature from here around how it happens in the US. And I think what you said is like completely different.
Large companies have a process that's a lot more thoughtful into this. They do what's called performance improvement plans called PIPs or PEPs, and then various steps. HR gets involved, and at the end, you're not the one leading them out of the building. HR gets involved and takes care of that. So.
In big companies, so maybe.
In big companies and medium-sized companies, I think companies evolve quickly to that stage. I think. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So we have to switch to the questions, or.
The only one thing I'll add is in my entire career, I've fired more people for being brilliant jerks than being low performers because they can't do their job. So just for context, like in my entire career at pretty much every company.
And the cliche of you always end up realizing that you should have done it earlier, I think always rings true too. True. And alongside that the people, and I've parted ways with people who were friends, and in all cases that I'm familiar with, they end up happier because it was a question of fit, like your point earlier.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to switch to the questions, and because we are stuck between the audience and the cocktail, so now they are streaming. How is it working at Uber as a woman?
Well, I'm not the unicorn at Uber, just so that you know. I think about 35% of our leadership team is women. That might shock people, but that is true. We have about, I don't know the percentages, but we do have quite a few senior leaders in the company that are more senior than me. And we do actually have a lot of engineering managers a level below me that are women. So we do have a lot of women in the leadership team at Uber. Our percentages are no different than, say, the Google or Facebook. We are not better than any of these other companies. We could be better, but we're also not worse off. That some people might think that women at Uber somehow are getting sexually harassed every day, which is actually not true. It's far from true. And even the isolated incident that has become quite sensational in media, it is not unique to the industry. It has happened to me personally at Microsoft. So it is by far not unique to the industry, and these cases are not unique in the Silicon Valley either. So that's just one thing. For me, working as a woman at Uber is actually no different, and in some cases actually better than past experiences in the industry.
So we had in mind to talk about gender mix and everything, but we lack time. So how do you feel about working with freelancers as a way to replace recruitment in some cases? So Luc,
I can take that one. I think so again, speaking from my Google experience, we hire very few freelancers, but sometimes it's the only way to do it when a person has a unique skill set and just doesn't want to be hired as full-time because they want to have more freedom, they want to just work 2 days a week, or they want to work from remote location and they have other clients. So we allow it sometimes. Other situation that you have a project that you don't really know if it's going to be a long-term thing. You want to just get something going, but you're not sure about having permanent headcount on it. But then you hire sort of contractors and things like this. So I think it's an okay thing to complement your strategy. I would not use that overly widely. Otherwise, you're don't really have people you can count on when crunch time comes.
And you, Darag, is it in your DNA too?
No, it's not really. Almost zero cases in engineering. The only time that I did was opportunistically, where someone was taking a job in Google in a few months' time, and we got to work with them, and it paid off because they then left Google after 7 months or something and came working for us. But around other disciplines, perhaps there's certain things where we do use freelancers for illustrations and different things that don't require being part of the team.
Okay, okay. So I think we're done for tonight. So thank you a lot. Thank you for coming. And now you get the cocktails.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, the mentors, not only for flying from all over the world to share their knowledge, but also to spend their time every day, every week on the platform to help you on your challenges. So thank you again. This mission is not over. We are going to organize more events. We are going to improve the product. We need your help. We need your feedback. We need to build this product together. So if you want to try, talk to me, talk to the team, sign up in platohq.com. So let's drink, let's eat, let's connect, let's have fun. Thank you very much.